What's the best sexual experience you've ever had? Little backstory, lost my virginity to an ex and dated for 2 years. She was okay in bed, nothing special. I didn't particularly enjoy the blowjobs, so I just assumed they weren't for me. Fast forward 2 years and we're broken up. Bring a girl back from work and we're fooling around. She decides to go down on me and I roll my eyes and say to myself, God, here we go. Turns out my ex was it at blowjobs. I saw colors for the first time. Blowies rock. Many years ago, had this FWB. I was moving across country soon and she wanted something special before I left. Specifically, she wanted me to take a bath with her. So I go over to her place and she's got the place all decked out with candles and she fills up the tub using some kind of bubble bath. The tub WSS, one of those old school ones with feet. Pretty big. So we get in the tub and start fooling around. Foreplay, intercourse, etc. Now, what made this night extra special was we were having terrific thunderstorms. They kept rolling through, getting louder and softer, the rain getting more or less intense, and the wind picking up and dying back down. So that we are in this hot steamy bathroom, with cool wet wind blowing in the windows, lightning flashing and thunder crashing and booming. It was incredible. We ducked in the tub until we couldn't stand being in there anymore. Then we got out and ducked in her bed. Then we went out on the patio and drank beer and blazed. Then we went back inside and ducked some more. All night the storm just kept going. I came 6 times. She was one of the best lays I've ever had anyways. But the combination of the storm and her being a little sad about me leaving made it that much more intense and special. Best 6 of my life. I hugged a girl once. I met a girl at a bar. She was cute, like 5 feet 4 inches blonde, not normally my type, but she made it clear I was hers. After some drinks and conversation she invited me back to her place. We're kissing in her bed while her roommate is passed out on the couch. She pulls my mouth to her ear and whispers, duck me. I check to see if she's wet and she gives me this look that I interpreted as think you're man enough, which made me determined to prove I was. I slam into her. She moans. He says out loud, duck yeah daddy, give it to me. I have never been called daddy prior to this and the thought has always disgusted me. That being said, I have never climaxed harder in my life. Now I'm feeling a bit embarrassed and mention that no one's ever called me daddy before. Thankfully I can reload relatively quickly, so we go at it until we pass out. When I woke up she went to class but her roommate was there. We get to chatting and she makes me pancakes. I ask her where I could find a fork and knife and she said to me, in the drawer to the left daddy. Got a good laugh out of me. When I was 18 I was at this girl's house and it was just me, her and her friend. Out of nowhere, I had never hooked up with either of them. Girl 1 said, let's see how quick we can get jealous. Hard. Being 18 I was hard before she finished the sentence. And they proceeded to give me blowjob. Both of them. At the same time. Best 5 minutes of my life. When I was 19 I went skinny dipping with 2 girls at a creek. Got a BJ from both of them at the same time. One was teaching the other some techniques which I found particularly hot. I told my ex-girlfriend that I have a foot fetish. She'd never been with a guy like that before, so she told to wait a bit before she tried anything with her feet. The following weekend I go over to her apartment and she gives me the first foot job I ever experienced and I had one of the best orgasms of my life. Come to find out she spent all week reading QA boards and watching foot porn to understand the technique. This thread is currently active as my 6th life. No worries though. I'll come back later so I can be more disappointed. I tried internet dating for the first time in my mid-20s. I met a woman in her mid-30s who had just recently got divorced. I think she got some kind of settlement. She bought a new car, a new condo and a new set of tits and was looking to spread her wings sexually. She was an emotional train wreck, but, my god, could that woman ever duck? She was so wantonly slutty in the bedroom. She would do anything I wanted. It was like having a personal sex robot. She had such an incredibly high motor. Even 25-year-old me couldn't keep up. There was absolutely no satisfying her once she got going. My D would be waving a white flag and crying for help by the end of our trysts. Probably the first time I smoked before having sex. We took our time with everything and we were both able to finish multiple times, and afterwards we fell asleep while eating Little Caesars. 10/10. I could never come from a blowjob. A few girls thought they could and got their pride hurt when they couldn't. It just wasn't my thing, I guess. Well, my wife took on herself one day, put her hand at my base and told me to duck her face and don't worry about hurting her. Her hand kept me from hitting the back of her throat but let me do as I wanted. That was all it took, I guess. Oh, grave A circumflex A diaresis. It was really something special that she trusted me not to hurt her and do what I felt need to get me off. I would say when my girlfriend and I booked a hotel room that was in one of the tallest buildings in Shanghai. We were on a layover and was super horny, as we did not get a chance to have sex during the entire trip. As soon as we entered, huge hotel room with giant windows on the 80+ floors, facing the night lights of Shanghai and Pudong. We literally tore our clothes off and had sex with the windows wide open, taking photos and recording it along the way. If anyone was in that office building across the street, they could have easily seen us. We did not care. Also, the bed was nice and soft AF. Nothing too crazy. My wife and I gave each other full-on massages by candlelight, culminating in some very passionate ducking. Nice. OP is just skipping the foreplay that most of these kinds of threads have and just going straight to what is the sexiest sex you've ever sexed. I banged Princess Diana so hard. Ducking my ex-girlfriend with her on top. I had a finger in her ass while she was riding me. I could feel my own D with my finger. I mean, I was high, but the idea itself that I was inside of her and feeling myself inside of her from different holes was mind-blowingly sexy. One of the best orgasms I've ever had. Had a threesome with a British and Australian chick in Chiang Mai, Thailand while drunk off our ass. They took turns on me to see how many times I could ejaculate. Best time of my life. Edged with a girl over voice chat. She wouldn't come until I did, and vice versa. We're still going to this day. Duck it. I'll bite. One time my boyfriend and I ate a very large quantity of marijuana edibles. I don't know the MG. They were made by a friend. And started to have sex. The weed, plus my incredibly low tolerance to weed, plus my boyfriend's magic fingers, resulted in an incredibly intense orgasm. I'm talking my eyes were closed, but I could see and feel colors radiating out of me. It was super. I was worried that sex wouldn't be the same sober after that, but luckily it's still been pretty great. Not rainbows coming out of my pussy great, but still great. The night my daughter was created, I remember falling asleep feeling safe and warm, like love was pouring from my soul, and I was wrapped in love. Looking back, in that instant, I knew we created life. Less than 3 weeks later, I confirmed it. Life is funny. Made eye contact with my classmate once. 10/10 would do again. I can't decide between two. I always wanted a threesome. So when I got to eat out a girl while her BF ducked me from behind, that was pretty amazing. Ducking her with a strap-on was a huge fantasy I got to fulfill as well. Second is probably my first real experience with roleplay. I was dressed as Harley Quinn, just a version for those who care, and he had me tied to the bed and blindfolded and pounded me like crazy. So, yeah, that was nice. This question gets asked a lot, so I'm just gonna share a random hot one. Not the best ever. I hooked up with a girl a couple times who had a thing for pain and preferred anal over regular sex. We met up once and began making out. We got naked pretty quickly and she got on top of me. She began to ride me, during which I put my middle finger in her ass and used it to help her bounce up and down. At one point I pull out, spread her cheeks and put my D on her asshole. She had a tiny butt, so I basically clamped each cheek in my hands and pulled her down onto my D. She screamed out but immediately began rocking back and forth until I was pretty deep in her ass. Eventually it was deep enough that when I looked down I could see her pussy clearly, but my D was completely swallowed by her ass. We did other positions briefly before she and I came. It was one of the best experiences because it was one of the first times I had ever done deep anal for longer than a minute. All I have is a short video of the experience, but the memory is still very fresh in my mind. Honeymoon. 6 on the balcony on one of those big comfy round outdoor couch things. It started raining halfway through and we just kept on going. It was awesome. The first time I did anal with my current BF and realized that I really enjoyed it. I came in a way that I had never done before and it was ducking amazing. My now husband, then boyfriend, had told me that he didn't care for blowjobs, so no worries in that department. I was flabbergasted and asked if he knew what he was saying. He insisted that he had gotten them before and didn't care for them. I kind of took this as a challenge, and since we were having this conversation mid-shower, I decided to get on my knees right then and there. Let me mention really quick that we lived with 6 roommates and they were all home. Anyway, I give what I feel was a regular blowjob. Nothing too extra. Just a run-of-the-mill blowsy. His eyes rolled to the back of his head. He collapsed on top of me and at least 4 roommates were asking if we were okay through the bathroom door. I was trying to hold him up as he was trying to recover, as 4 roommates were trying to break into the bathroom because something was wrong. Literally my proudest sexual moment. I broke my now husband and it took very little effort. I was on a dating site when I noticed a girl from the other side of the country checked my profile. Curious, I messaged her asking how she came across my profile. Turns out that she was in town on a conference. She wanted me to come to her hotel the following night and duck her. She told me she would have her hotel mate leave the room for 2 hours. Didn't even want me to say anything, just walk in and give it to her as many times as I could in that time frame. I honestly thought it was a scam, but she sent me enough nudes and she looked amazing, so I said why not. I got there and she answered the door in nothing but a towel. She tried to say hello, but true to my word, I put a shushing finger over her mouth and walked in the door. Threw her on the bed and started eating her out. Eventually I put on a condom and started ducking her. Condoms suck and we both decided to ditch it. I still remember her moans and she even grabbed my phone and started recording me ducking her. Unfortunately it was so dark that it basically just turned into audio. I banged her 3 times and on climax of the 3rd it was almost 2 hours on the dot. I put on my clothes and left with a goodnight kiss. We never talked again. Man, it was hot. Thanks for reminding me. Oddly enough, losing my virginity. I've been on psychotropic medication my whole life. First Lexapro and then Seroquel spring quarter senior year of college when this happened. Something they don't tell you about those meds is that they prolong your erection. I went 3 hours. Combination of the drugs and me jerking it with a death grip. 30 minutes and the girl goes, bullet, you've never done this before. At some point I just spontaneously lift the girl's legs above her head and start pounding her that way. Between that night and the next we probably went through about 8-9 positions. For some reason that night, and that night only, my D head got red hot. She really liked that. I was a ducking idiot. So I nutted inside her. But I guess because of the drugs it was barely a trickle. I think that's the only part she didn't like. She blurts out, "That's it," at the end of round 1. Also, duck to Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti Disc 2, Swan Song. 45 years later, probably still the best album ever recorded for 6. She laughed so hard at the final song when Robert Plant sang "Someday Soon You're Gonna Reach 16. I straight failed 2 quizzes the following Monday. Didn't matter. Had 6. Ended a relationship but decided to continue hooking up. Plus also started flirting with 2 other girls. Would stay over at first overnight BC Familiar and OKW, sleeping there. And have 6 in the morning, then classes till around 2 PM and go to number 2 who had an oral fixation and loved giving blowjobs, so that'd be different, then do some homework, drink whatever, and number 3 in the evening. This schedule went on for about 2 weeks and I felt like a living god. I had just gone through a breakup and my best friend, who is female, came over to drink and console me. The whole night she's texting someone. Then she suddenly says, "Okay, we gotta go meet less than mutual female friend more than." I think nothing of it and we go out to meet up with her. Long story short, my friend orchestrated a threesome. Weirdly enough, the woman I would later marry was in the next room hanging out with my roommates. On a technical basis the sex was decent. But still, I can say I had the good kind of threesome. And no guy who looks like me should ever have that chance. For me was with my ex-wife. Inside my car and each of us with 200 UG of LSD. We lost time space and we had sex for 5 hours without even know how. Making this 35-year-old MILF squirt for her first time. Best feeling. My GF and I went to the mountains of TN last year. We had sex in the hot tub that was on the back porch of a secluded cabin, overlooking the mountain and the pouring rain. It was honestly one of hottest moments I've ever experienced. She got on top and rode me until we both came. It was amazing. I was masturbating to busty mature porn and Mark Zuckerberg was sitting in his office laughing as he shared my porn interests with data firms so they could later blackmail me when after years of procrastination I finally make something of myself. 6 or 7 years ago, responded to a Craigslist ad. Guy looking to engage in some mutual skin flute playing. We ended up not being able to connect individually, but he invited me to an orgy at some other guy's house. I was a bit nervous. Me and another guy were the youngest there by far, which was fine by me, and it was my first time doing anything like this. Well, I started sucking a guy off. The other young guy came up behind me and starting remming me. That was amazing. Then we moved to him ducking me while I blew the other guy. It eventually ended up with me getting ducked on my back, with my D in a guy's mouth and a D in my mouth. Whoa, just wow. One of my best friends asked me if I wanted to play Ocarina of Time for nostalgia. I just got to the Kokiri sword when she grabbed me head and kissed me. And I then passionately ducked while the Kokiri forest song played in the background. Amazing time. We dated for a few months afterwards. I went on a really nice first date with someone I'd been talking to through a dating app for a week or two. At the end of the date he suggested we go back to one of our places to talk and I said yes because it had been at least a year. Gadam, he took me to Pound Town. 3 hours of kissing, fondling, grinding, ducking, then ducking again and again. He was the first guy that actually cared enough to make sure I orgasmed more than once. Coming from an ex who didn't ever want to try anything different from missionary, it is really nice being with someone that wants to experiment. He also tells me what he wants in bed and listens to what I want as well. I'm seeing him again this weekend after a month-long absence and my V is tingling thinking about it already. I once took a train to Munich when I was horny teenager and sat alone in a little enclosed section of the train. At some point the man entered. We didn't talk but had eye contact. Long story short, he closed the drapes and sucked me off all whilst not saying a single word. Thought about that while jerking off for years to come. My GF knew I wanted to enter the forbidden cave around back. She once said let me shove a broomstick up your ass first, then we can try it. I contemplated her offer and waited for a more rewarding opportunity. It came when she asked me to rub some cream on her legs. My hands eventually made it to the dark side and she seemed to like it. She wanted me inside her but I wasn't through playing with the dark side. Then she said no, I want you in there. Yippee ki yay mother effer. I break down the walls and enter the dark side. I will never forget looking at her blissful face when she said it's supposed to be in there. Couldn't have planned it any better. Tit duck my small chested friend. Then we cuddled until we fell asleep. It was amazing. It also boosted her confidence. So a win-win. Found a trucker on Grindr. In town for the day. Big, tall dude. Like 6 feet 4 inches and pretty damn chubby, which I like. Told me he was a dom and wanted to experiment with submissive men. So I go down to the truck stop, slink my way around into his truck, and the fun starts. We talked quite a bit for a while first. He tells me he's married, but he's only home 2 days out of the month and that both he and his wife agreed it's better if they mess around so they're satisfied. We talk about fetishes, and it turns out we like a lot of the same things. We talk about all the things we like to hear, things we like to do, things we like to say. It all matches up. Let me tell you, I never would have guessed that the best sex I've ever had involving nearly every single one of my fantasies for about 3 hours would take place in a semi, and it was amazing. He now gives me a text whenever he's back in my state so we can meet up and have more amazing sex. Banged a chick named Molly while on the Molly. It was nice. It's cliche but sex on the beach at night. The woman I was madly in love with riding me framed against the stars with just the right tequila buzz swirling in my brain was surreally perfect. I convinced my partner to choke me in bed. I fainted. It was the best feeling just fading out of existence and waking up to the inside you. I don't know how to describe the feeling to someone who isn't into this kind of thing, but it's kind of like falling asleep. Your whole body tingles and you hear ringing in your ears, but it's completely painless. Waking up and becoming slowly aware of being pumped with D is really surreal. 10/10 recommend. The first time we tried it, I woke up to my partner slapping my face and shaking with terror. Apparently it was scary watching me disappear behind my still open eyes. Didn't kill his boner though, because I know it freaks him out. I never asked to be choked anymore. Sometimes he's in the mood for it though, and that is always the best 6. Duck this thread, making me realize I haven't gotten laid in 3 months. This one time a ton of internet strangers posted their 6 stories on my thread and I had a quality wank over it all. The one with ups mom for not using a serious tag. I once had a girl slide a finger down back while ejaculating. As I finished and began to pull out, her fingers sank deeper. I was trapped. It was glorious, painful and sensational all at once. Was getting close to an orgasm one time with my man while he was behind me. It's pretty hard for me to come, so I was getting excited. He lost control, grabbed my hips, and thrust hard and jerked, rubbing my spot and then ejaculating right against it. That sensation of his cum against my spot made me start to come. It was the first time he felt my orgasm while inside me. I tightened up so much that I pushed him out, but because he was holding my hips, he didn't get pushed out. Made him come harder. Then I came more. For like a full minute. It was grand. Had a threesome with 2 Asian girls. Sure, I paid for it, but still. I saw title and hoped reading this thread would make at least the top 5, but currently it's barely pushing top 10. I stumbled into a giant line of hookers in Irapuato, Mexico while pretty high on coke and flush with cash. Got 4 of them to duck the it out of me. A handheld with a girl once. Wasn't really sexual but might as well have been. My crush was massaging the back of my neck. I swear I almost jizzed. We were dating and the sexual chemistry was okay. We went to a big German beer celebration and stumbled back to the apartment. Under her dress were some really sexy panties and she did the landing strip bush. I went down on her, and it really trapped in her pheromones and made me quite randy. We spent the next 2 hours until I finally came. It was epic. Let me set the stage lol. One night, my ex-boyfriend and I went to his friend's birthday dinner at a trendy restaurant and had a ball. 7 courses of delicious food and wine pairings, followed by more drinks at a brewery nearby. I rarely drink, so by the end of the night, I was feeling good. So good. The 6 basically started as soon as we got in his car. We sped down the highway back to his place and the whole time his hand was in my bra. Then once we pulled up in his driveway, his D went in my mouth. I jaff if anyone could see us. I needed that cum okay, but there's only so much you can do in the front seat. So half dressed, we tumbled inside a few minutes later where he bent me over his bed and ducked me hard from behind, and let me tell you, it was glorious. No idea what it was, but the energy was different that night. So of course, we went at it multiple times, then tried to go to sleep, then did it again. Then actually did go to sleep. Then did it again in the morning. Swear to God, I never felt that turned on before in my life. The blood really does leave your brain lol. Had a FWB at 19. He was 27 when we started fooling around. We'd had sex quite a few times before this best sexual experience happened. This night, he'd invited me and a friend over to his condo for dinner and drinks with one of his buds. We were all talking and having a good time when he says he has something to show me in his room. We all knew he was hinting at sex in a not so subtle way. I said sure and followed him to his room. We went into his bathroom and he ducked me hard on his bathroom counter while I tried not to make too much noise. After we finished, we returned to his living room where our friends had probably heard everything and tried to play it off. I'm living with a woman I plan to marry, and it's cheesy as duck, but basically every time is wonderful with her. Sometimes are notably better than baseline. Like the few times we've made love in the cardboard box fort that I built for her. The pegging is nice. Every time of my current relationship is amazing, honestly. He's a generous and amazing lover. But the best, the first time he pulled out in the middle of it and went down on me for a while, then went right back at it. I'd never had someone do that before, and there was just something incredibly sexy and almost carnal about it. Like he loves being inside of me, but he loves going down on me so much and making me happy and feel good. He couldn't contain himself and had to make a quick visit downtown lol. He always makes me feel amazing. But in that moment he showed me he 100% meant everything he's told me he feels about me, my body. I've never felt sexier in my almost 31 years. And once he was actually back inside of me within a few minutes I came so hard my ducking ears were ringing. Like a legit wave. Huge build up to it. The crest, which felt like it lasted forever. And little aftershocks. Wife asked what my ultimate fantasy was. I told her I wanted a lubed up foot job while I sat on the ottoman and she sat on the chair. She let me. I lasted 3 minutes and blasted all over her.